My name is Natalie Smith and I'm running for the position of VP Education. It's important that the union represents everyone, and so I'm running because I think that inclusivity in an education environment takes a lot of work, and so I've got a lot of dedicated manifesto points to ensuring that that higher education is as accessible as possible. 3 main points. So first one would be eliminate hidden course costs. So I've spoken to a lot of students who they've accepted their offers, they've come to university, they've paid their fees, or the government's paid their fees, and then suddenly they are slapped with a mandatory field trip of £650, and if they can't go on the field trip, then they have to change their degree title. Or I spoke to an education student the other day who has to pay £15 for his assessment method. If he can't pay the £15, then he can't be assessed for his module, which means failing the module. And I don't think this is acceptable. People need to know that these costs are coming if they have to be there in the first place, because some of them seem quite preventable. The £15 for the education student comes from getting things professionally printed, but we have printing facilities at the university, so that's an avoidable course cost. Where they have to remain, they should be advertised in advance, and where possible, I also think that the student hardship fund should be much more widely publicised. A lot of students don't know that they can access these funds and that they can have the university cover some of these fees. Second point would be the supporting survivors of sexual violence. So sexual violence on a campus setting is a prevalent problem, and it's difficult enough to navigate the aftermath without having your educational experience affected as well. And so the university is doing work in improving report-focused strategies, which is important, but it's also important to make sure that care is provided for the victim in the aftermath. So the support needs to be cohesive. What's happened in some instances is student discloses that something has happened to their personal tutor, and the personal tutor's been like, right, okay, how can I help? They've tried to help and got in touch with, if it's a cross-departmental degree, got in touch with the other department, and then been turned away from the other department unless they get in touch with them themselves. So the word of the personal tutor isn't taken. Students are being asked to provide proof that things have happened to them in order to access any help. And while proof is needed in a court context, say, it shouldn't be needed just to access the academic help you need to complete your degree. And what's also happened is that students have had to sit in classes with the people who have attacked them, if it's a fellow classmate. And so there should be ways of, say, just changing to a different seminar if you're not reporting it, like just changing to a different seminar, making sure that your grade doesn't get capped if that isn't possible. Just simple things like that, making sure that the support is cohesive, it's clear and accessible, without the burden of proof being on the victim who's already struggling. And finally, I'd say that I'd like to be a big support for international students, especially in the current political climate post-Brexit. I'm an EU student, I come from Belgium, and moving to Scotland was challenging. It's challenging enough without having to deal with complicated, internal political issues. So I would like special support for international students to be available, making sure that student services are advertised and that they're properly aware of the kind of issues that international students will deal with. Like, students should know where to be able to go for visas and language help, things like that. Well, as I was saying in the beginning, inclusivity isn't the default within institutions. Like, by very definition, it takes work to make sure that everyone is included and that everyone is engaged with. So I've got a manifesto that's worked with that essence and built from that to show that I am willing to work very hard to make sure that the educational environment is accessible to all students.